file, or especially what is the need of the such so what is the need of such particular tool, or the context, especially when you're actually dealing with the infrastructure at a scale. All right. So, and like I was always like I was like Tarushi was already mentioning about, the things when you're working at a scale, the landscape is going to be a bit different, or majorly different. So when you actually deal with the so small projects versus the big projects, so in the very starting itself, the structure of your infrastructure as a code is very important in order to deal it in within the production, by the way. So that is where is the major context coming into picture. And I think, like, so just to start with, okay, let me just take you through what I wanted to uh, so covering this, and as well as the problem statement, so that you will get the clear context. But actually I'm trying to drive this particular topic, especially in the platform way. That meaning, like, so whenever you have a big platforms like Amazon, or you take Paytm, or you take maybe any other big platforms, like, so where do you see multiple microservices work together? Okay, so when these kind of approaches we have in the project, so where there's a platform team owns the certain domain, like maybe .com, but whereas you have individual engineering teams, by the way, so which is going to develop the software products, by the way, and host them onto the platform side, where it get sold to the end customer. So there is going to be so there is going to be certain practices that we definitely need it. And but one of the general practice that we generally talk about when we write the code is keeping the code dry, right? So we always need to ensure that the code which we written for one project eventually has to work for another project as well. And even in the same within the project also, you write the code for one environment, so the same code has to go and work for another environment as well. So that is where the major the Terraform comes into picture. So it makes your operations minimal when you actually try to do the things on the production. So our goal is to have a minimal downtime. So the other talks where we have been seeing about, like, how to handle the applications at a scale, right? So while you're having the applications at a scale, and minimizing the number of errors is a very important thing. And especially when you're touching the infrastructure, or so touching the infrastructure means creation or upgrading any sort of infra, we need to ensure that the errors always goes minimal, and accordingly, like, all these IAC practices all come into picture, right? So that's where we are going to look into the area, like how can we reuse the code in a better way. So with this particular Terrafile. So that's the context. And to this fundamental, so basically we are going to have something, not something, by the way. So for this, we are actually fundamentally having is a Terraform modules. We know in Terraform, everything is a module. And so Terraform module is nothing but a group of resources grouped together. It's generally called as a module. Like, as we discussed, it's going to help us in keeping the in keeping the or reusing the code in different different pieces of the code to reuse, by the way. So that's the essential need of the module. And so we use the child modules in the Terraform. So basically our main module is root module, and we try to call some other modules into our main root module, and we use it. So that is okay. And if we want to use the same module across multiple environments, like illustrated maybe in this particular simple diagram. So if I have a module, so maybe it is in the Git repository. So that's a very standard. We always try to keep the repositories under a third party individual repositories. And whenever we try to import those particular modules into our actual main root module, so this is how we do that. So we'll specify there's a module and there's a source and things like that, right? So there are a bunch of meta arguments that Terraform is actually going to support around module, at least from version 0.13, I believe. Like, there are a bunch of features has been added to the module, like you have a count, you have for each, and you have depends on. All these particular keywords or meta arguments has been added as a part of Terraform version releases. And so from 0.13 version, I think it's almost like 3.5 years back. So, but it just brought a very, very big power to the Terraform module. So in terms of reusability, by the way, especially. And so here, one of the argument we are seeing it out here is, one of the mandatory argument we are seeing here is a source. Whenever you're declaring a module, a must and should argument that we need is, we need to specify a source. So here I'm using a Git repository. So that's where maybe the URL is not exactly same, but just I'm giving like as a dummy. The HTTPS is necessarily not needed if you are using Git repo. So you can directly ignore that URI and give the remaining part. So that is okay. So here to this particular module, so what we're going to have is we're going to deal with multiple environments. So that's where we're going to have the dev related environment variables, maybe grouping in one file or multi files. So we'll keep it in separate files, and production related things we are going to keep it in separate files, or on the CI system or on the automation, wherever we are using it. So you're going to send these particular arguments accordingly, so that whichever the environment you're running, so the same module will be used. The same root module will be called, but however, the child module, whichever is the demo module, so that will be called, imported, and accordingly it is going to run it. But if you have the, so single project and you're dealing with the two environments or many environments, so this is a very standard way that we generally use it. But the problem will come into picture, okay, when you are actually doing a continuous development and as well as the continuous operations together, whereas your project is live and is already in production. And if you want to go with, if you want to go and change the, so the Terraform module, existing module, by the way, and in the meantime, for an example, this module has been changed. I'm doing the development, by the way. So in the development environment, I've been testing this particular module. But however, so in the meantime, so there is a need of running the same code against the production. So what we'll do, what we'll be doing is we just run against the production environment, and eventually it is going to load the uncompleted or the pieces which are under development will be imported and run against the production environment as well, which is definitely not is the expected behavior around multiple environments, right? So that is where the major challenge comes into picture. Or maybe, so for an example, like you are on the platform side, and when you are having multiple teams using the module, so one team is using using the same module, another team is also using the same module, but whereas you are the module owner, so you maintain the modules as an example. Now, if one team is asking for a additional resource to be created, so maybe I'm creating a bunch of resources plus a couple of other resources they're asking to add it to your module. Okay, so then, or they are adding it to that particular module. So they are thinking in their project perspective and they are modifying the code. Whereas other project, they are not aware of that context and they are also trying to import the same module. And hence the problem comes into picture. So the unnecessary resources for the another project will be created over here. So that is where the challenges especially comes into the picture when you actually deal with on the platform side, or maybe in the projects are also we're talking about the same environment level also, you'll face the same challenge. And for this particular one, so what we are actually trying to do is, so we are using one of the tool which is called as Terrafile. But why we need that particular Terrafile tool? So why can't actually we deal with the Terraform? Okay, so that is where yes, the problem comes into picture. So here, whatever the source parameter, the meta argument, whatever we have in Terraform, it doesn't support the variable. Okay, you cannot parameterize this particular part. So maybe I can create two versions of the Git particular this particular Git repository. I can create two versions of the code, which is fine. But however, whenever I come to the usability, by the way, I cannot actually specify a particular version for the particular environment. Maybe my dev is looking for the latest version. My prod is looking for the little bit older version. I cannot actually just go ahead and, so use or, so parameterize this particular one. So back in days, we used to, at least to handle the same scenario, we used to wrap it with a shell script, or we used to maybe, we used to do that with the Git submodules is there. So using the Git submodules also, you can kind of, so work around with that particular one. So this is also, we used to do it. But however, so now to solve this particular problem, so there is a straightforward tool is available. Sorry. So there is a straightforward tool is available. And so it's a very simple binary, by the way, solving a very simple problem. But however, whenever look into the value side, it's going to bring a very good value around it. Okay, so that is where, so we are going to talk about the next tool, which solves this particular problem. Here is the Terrafile. So here is the Terrafile, and what we're going to do is we're going to write a sorry, give me a minute. Really sorry. Yeah. So here in between an additional layer comes into picture before running our actual Terraform. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a Terrafile, which this Terrafile is going to support us choosing a particular version. So maybe a dev environment, I'm choosing a latest version. So which is saying like 1.2.0. And whereas my production, I'm choosing a little bit older version. And whenever I run my Terrafile, so it is going to just download those particular modules into this particular location. And I can comfortably go and run the same module again and again. Sorry, my throat is a bit bad. Yeah, so the same module we'll be using again and again. So there is no need of changing this particular source version. So we'll be using the Terrafile will clone that particular repo and keep it in a location somewhere. Maybe it's not an appropriate path, but still that's fine. It keep in some path, and we're going to consume that particular path on the module side, so that we no need to really touch this particular source at any point of time. Just before running the Terraform, we'll run the Terrafile according to the environment. So we'll just ensure we load the appropriate module versions, and we run it accordingly. It's as simple as that. Right. So that's about the problem statement. So we can get onto the demo. But before going, any questions?
I guess we don't have any questions for now.
Yeah. Great. So let's get on to the practical part. Terrafile is very simple binary, by the way. So you can just get it from their GitHub page. So it's going to be a simple binary file, which is available over here. So in this particular releases, and you can use it. And the syntaxing is also very simple. So you're going to say the module name, and it is going to create a directory and download the module in that particular directory in the name, whatever you have given here. And you're going to specify the source and which version you want to download. And so just to demonstrate this, what I have done is I have just created two things here. So one is a module. So this module is going to create a single EC2 server. And I'm calling that particular module. So from here, so I have two environments. One is dev environment, and I'm just passing the dev related values. And I have a production environment. I'm passing the production related values. And also the state file, I'm using a Terraform remote state file, which is S3 bucket, because I'm using Amazon environment. So that's where it is. And here the Terrafile. So at this point of time, I didn't create any Git tags, by the way. I wanted to create during the session or during the demo. So I just pointed to the main at this point of time. But however, we'll see how can we point to two different versions for two different environments right now. So, and also I created a make file just to make my life easy. So here I just going to run the make prod. So that means the Terrafile is going to run against my env prod directory in Terrafile. And whereas if I give make dev, it's going to give Terrafile -env dev and then the appropriate Terrafile. So this is what is the simple thing I have done. And after the Terraform init and apply is quite common, by the way. And I already applied those as well. So I have two machines already been created in my account. So just for testing purpose, I already ran those. And so one is a prod machine and the other one is a dev machine. So here it is. Maybe if I want to enhance my code now, I wanted to first test it in the dev environment, then only I want to go to the production environment. So how can we use the same module now? And how can you point to the two versions is what we're going to see it now. And it's quite simple. So our version v1 code is already ready. What I would say is I would create a new tag here. So v1.0.0 maybe. This is already created one. I'll push the tag. And since I push the tag, so maybe on the Terrafile side, wherever I'm consuming it, so I'll be specifying my production. I'll be going with 1.0.0. But maybe for dev environments, I still want to point to the main branch or any other, maybe once after my new development is completed, I will tag to the newer version. So until then, I'll just point to the main so that I can get the latest, whatever is the latest version. Okay. Now what I wanted to do is I just wanted to go and create maybe an additional resource. For an example, since we are around EC2, so we can go with the security group, by the way. So here is a security group. So I just wanted to, create a security group, and I want to attach this particular security group to that EC2 instance. Okay, let me see how can I do that. So here in the module, I will do this. Yes. So I'm having this particular security group, and this particular security group, I'm going to give ID. So this security group I'm going to attach to this, and this is into the main branch. And let me just commit the code. All right. So now if I just go to command line, and if I just give make space dev, now the dev is pointing to the main branch. So it has to pull the latest code. So that means it has to create an additional resource, which is called as a security group, and attach that to the EC2, an existing EC2 instance. So let's see whether it is happening. It's destroying the whole instance. Maybe it was under a different VPC or something. That's okay. And even we in Terraform, by the way, so we don't really need to modify the resources as well. We can get it from the plan as well. So maybe for the production, before applying, I will just do a plan so that I'll come to know so whether the infrastructure is already up to date or not. So the dev is done. And whereas if I go for make prod, so prod, we're actually, if you observe here, so it is pointing to v1.0.0, which is the oldest code or the world code. And ultimately, like, it shouldn't show any differences ideally. So you can see this, it is saying that your infrastructure is already up to date. So the production is still safe, even though we run it intentionally or accidentally. So the production will never bring the latest changes from the dev environments. So however, we always try to do it in the application side. How do we ensure the version is getting promoted to the higher environment? So the same way, infrastructure as a code also, we need to ensure we promote it to accordingly. And at the same time, so that is a multi environment. Whereas on the platform side, when you actually come to the platform side, so it's also very important once again. So because if you are having multiple projects, using the same code, by the way, and you need to ensure that, project level customizations will come into picture. And so we need to ensure that code works for multiple projects. And this is where the versioning of the Terraform code is very important. And we need to definitely implement it in the things when you actually work around the, work around the environments where which are ready to the production or running into the production. This kind of strategy is very much needed, by the way. And that comes to the end of my presentation, by the way. And once again, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please.
Yeah, you can all put your questions in the Q&A box, or you can also ask them aloud. If you have any question, just raise your hand and we'll open the unmute you. We have a lot of kudos coming your way, Sriharsha. Looks like there are no questions. I do have a question though. This Terrafile, can that be used along with TerraGrunt? Is that integration seamless?
See, TerraGrunt actually, I don't want to really tell in this way, but TerraGrunt was created when the Terraform was immature, by the way. But I mean, while the Terraform was maturing over a period of time with its own versions, TerraGrunt, at least today's world, I feel like it is necessarily not needed. Yeah, so Terraform can handle the things what actually TerraGrunt was intended to start with. And initially, when Terraform was when the TerraGrunt was introduced, by the way, the idea was to keep the code dry, and the modules were not having much features around the Terraform. So, but after 0.13 version, especially, so with the options that what Terraform is trying to provide, I don't think so. The TerraGrunt structure essentially is needed for today's world. Yeah, there's an extra burden. Actually, I feel like we are we're taking, by the way, by going into TerraGrunt, which is essentially not needed. Terraform itself, it's a self-executable with all the requirements. Maybe my observation. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thanks, Harsha.
Thank you, Sriharsha.
Any other questions?
No other questions, I suppose.
Cool. Then we can call it here. Thank you so much, Harsha. And you can reach out to Harsha over LinkedIn. The link is available on the speaker notes as well as on the Introverse website. You can, yeah. We'll take a quick 2-minute break and jump on to our next session.
Yeah.
Cool. I hope